everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we are doing a pattern from a designer that we have never brought to the channel. This is the first time we have this designer on the channel. Today we are doing Pollies Pocket, and this comes to us from Sewfisticated Craft. So, the owner of Sewfisticated Craft sent me an email and let me know about their brand new pattern, which is this amazing backpack that folds down and expands, and it's probably one of the smartest ideas I've ever seen. Go check that out. It's on the list. I know you're gonna ask, it's on the list. Yes, it's an amazing backpack. But today, we're gonna do something a little bit simpler, a little bit quicker, but crazy useful. Like, everyday useful. Today, we're making Pollies Pocket, which is the cutest little clear pocket zip pouch with a little bit of extra flavor to it. So I've actually done a pretty basic clear pocket pouch before, but it was using an embroidery machine, and so many of you guys were like, please, I don't have an embroidery machine. Show us how to do it on the sewing machine. This is your pattern. You're gonna love this. It's so good. So as you can see, we have this nice little clear pocket on the front. Here is just like a gift card, so I'll put that in there. It fits perfectly. You have plenty of space for an ID, any type of card you want to have in there. On the top, we have a main zipper with nice space on the inside. And this is where I really love this pattern. It's the back side. I love a good back side. But here's the back side, and as you can see, we have a slip pocket. Oh no, not a slip pocket. It is a cam snap pocket. We've got a snap on there. And then, what's this? What? Hi! So dumb. This is a tissue pocket. You can put your tissues in there. Isn't that great? I don't know. Maybe that's something that's like you guys have seen a lot. I haven't seen that anywhere. I love that idea. As a mom of kids and the wife of a man who are always blowing their nose. I don't know about you guys. I only blow my nose when I have a cold, like when I'm sick. But my kids and my husband, they are blowing their nose all year round. I just don't get it. So I'm always carrying tissues on me in my pockets, in my purse, in all the little pockets of my purse. Like everything I own has tissues in it. Clean, dirty. It's one of those things, you know, so this is so handy to know I can just put some tissues in here. It's ready to go if we're out and about, if we go to a theme park, if we go out to the store, if we go anywhere. This is a very simple little thing to have. I can put my ID in here. I love this. Obviously, I think this is a great little make for theme parks. If you go to Universal Studios, maybe Disney, maybe a local park, maybe a zoo, even a library, any place like that where you need to have your pass and maybe some cash, maybe just a driver's license and a credit card, some tissues, like just the basics. You know, you don't want the crossbody, you don't want the backpack, you don't have to carry all that stuff. This is great. This does have a D-ring on it. We're not making any sort of strap to go with it, but you could make a wristlet strap. You could use a lanyard. If you want to buy a lanyard, make a lanyard. You could use that. You have a lot of options with this. So I'm so excited about this pattern. I'm so excited to bring it to the channel. You've got to go check out Sewfisticated Craft's website. The patterns on there, they are so good. Okay, they are so good. I'm gonna tell you right now on my sewing table, I have another one all cut out that I'm in the middle of. I have a third one of their patterns that is cut out and I will be hopefully making within the next couple of weeks. They're so good. They're so creative. I absolutely love these. So thank you so much to Sewfisticated Craft for allowing me to use your patterns on my channel. I hope you guys love making this as much as I do. It is such a fun one. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. If you see a pattern on their site and you're like, Jessica, I need to make this immediately. Please give me a tutorial. Put it down in the comments down below. There will, as always, be timestamps for every single part of this tutorial. They will be listed right along the bottom of the screen. You can also click the little arrow over here to expand the description of the video, and you'll also find the timestamps listed down there, as well as links to all the products and the pattern for this tutorial. All right, guys, let's get started. So this is a really great scrappy project. For this one, I'm going to be using quilt cotton for the exterior. And you really just need about like a fat quarter of it or so. I would suggest a half yard if you want to make multiples or if you think you want to make something to match it. I always like to go with at least a half yard of fabric. So I'm just using a cotton woven quilt weight cotton for the exterior. And then for the lining, I'm using the water resistant canvas. This is the very lightweight canvas from Wonderground Fabrics. It's my favorite to use, especially in projects where I know there's going to be a lot of seams. I know it's going to be tight, it's going to be small. Smaller projects require less stuff, but that usually means they're going to have like tighter seams, you know what I mean? So I want to reduce the bulk as much as possible. And again, I would suggest either like a half a yard at least of the water resistant canvas. I will be interfacing most of the cotton woven with Sewfuse, which is a woven interfacing. If you can't get Sewfuse, then check out Pellon SF101, also known as Pellon Shapeflex. This is just going to prevent the material from stretching or fraying. I'm not using it on everything that I use this exterior material for. And honestly, if you want, you don't have to use this. If you can be careful, you can make this without any interfacing to really keep the seams nice and thin. Next, you're going to need a small cut of clear vinyl for that window pocket. As you can see, I'm on my last leg of clear vinyl. This is my favorite. This is from By Annie. I think it's the perfect thickness. I think it's the easiest to work with. It comes with a backing paper, so you don't have to get anything else extra, any other interfacing or anything like that to cover your machine with. I find it easiest to work with, so I'll have a link for this down below. Next, I have 2 zippers. I'm going to be using a number 3 zipper for the front pocket, and you're going to need at least 8 inches for that. And then I'm going to use a number 5 zipper for the top pocket. You're going to need at least 7 inches for that. You're going to also want to have a 1/2 inch D-ring, because we are going to have a little tab with a D-ring, and you can make your own wristlet, or you can make your own lanyard, anything like that, however you want to wear it. And then obviously I have my zipper pulls to go with it. Just remember, if you're using different size zipper tape, and you can see here the difference in the size, you see how the prongs, the zipper teeth here, they're much wider on the number 5 than they are on the number 3. Just make sure you get, a number 3 zipper pull and a number 5 zipper pull to go with them. One zipper pull will not work on both sizes. So here's all the other stuff. I am using a rivet press, but this is a handheld rivet press. So for any of you guys who are interested in a rivet press, but you're not quite ready for the big behemoth that you have to find space somewhere in your craft room for, this is a great option. It's very strong, it's very durable. It's not like the plasticky things you're gonna find on Amazon. You gotta get this from Cam Snaps. It's great. I love it. I bought the cheaper things off of Amazon. They don't work like this works. So I'll be using this press here today because I will be adding some plastic snaps to this, which is very fun. You can see I have this fun assortment of plastic snaps here. Here's the thing, these plastic snaps, these are so fun. They have some like stars, they have flowers. Don't use those. Don't use the stars and the flowers ones because you don't see it. In this pattern, you don't see the cap of the snap. So just use the basic round ones that are nice and smooth. And then I have the die to go with it. It's just the plastic dies. I'll have links for all this down below. I also have a scrap of Decovil Light. You can have a scrap of vinyl, Decovil Light, you can have felt, anything. You just want a little bit scrap material, especially since the material we're using for the exterior and the lining are more lightweight. We do need to protect our fabric from these snaps as they're being used. We don't want them to rip a hole in the fabric as they're opened and closed a bunch. So we add a little bit of firmer something to hold them in place better. Next, I have my seam ripper and stiletto combo as always. I also have a stiletto that I keep next to the sewing machine. And then I have a heat erasing pen. This is something I'll use on the seams and places where it's not gonna be seen in the end. And then I have a vinyl pen. I don't know if I'll be using that today since I'm not really using vinyl, but just in case I have it. And then a chalk pen, which is great. You can mark this everywhere and it wipes off easily. Healthy supply of clover clips. I have my Tula snips that are just great at trimming down all the little bits and pieces. A turning tool, especially for this one, I think you really are going to want a turning tool. Then I have my needle. Today I'm using a Microtex 8012. The thread I'm using in the needle on the top part of the sewing machine is a Tex 45 weight thread. This is pretty thick for most sewing machines, so if you're not sure about this one, go with a Tex 35 weight. For the bobbin, I'll be using my classic Gutermann thread. This is just basic Gutermann thread from Joann's. And as always, I have a lighter to clean up any little bits and bobs of thread. Okay, so let's go through all the pattern pieces. First, we have piece A. This is going to be your exterior cut of fabric. This is the piece that's going to be behind the clear vinyl. So you will see some of this print. So if you have fussy cutting you want to do, and you want to make sure it's kind of over on the left side because the zipper will be up here. So this piece will be seen behind the clear vinyl. Next pattern piece B, this is going to go on the other side of the zipper. So you can see we'll have this here, then we'll have a zipper in between them, clear vinyl, bada bing, bada boom. Pattern piece C is going to be the piece that goes behind the tissue pocket. You don't see much of this. You pretty much only see this top strip. So you don't really need to use the really good stuff for this piece. And then pattern piece E is the same cut and it's going to be a lining cut. You're gonna have 2 of those. Pattern piece D is your clear vinyl, and like I said, my clear vinyl has this great backing on it already that I can sew through, I can tear. It helps prevent this from sticking to the machine as I'm sewing it. I'm a big fan of it. Next, pattern piece F is going to be your tissue flap. So it's the exterior tissue flap, so you have 2 cuts of exterior, and then you have 2 cuts of lining that are pattern piece G. This is a really cool feature on the little wallet, that little tissue flap on the back. I know we love it over here. If you're going to be using the same material for the lining and the exterior, then there's a different pattern piece that's just twice as big, and you can just cut that in one piece, and then you have 2 pieces instead of 4 pieces. Next, we have pattern piece H. This is your pocket tissue lining. You're going to have 2 cuts of that. Then we have pattern piece J, which is going to be for the D-ring. I do not have interfacing on this because that does get pretty bulky. Since this is a small bag, it's not going to be holding a lot of weight. It doesn't need to be interfaced. And then pattern piece K is the zipper tab. Also, don't interface that. Every other piece of quilt cotton or cotton woven material is interfaced with the Sewfuse. So the first thing we want to do is prep our zipper. This is going to be the number 3 zipper, and we're going to cut that to 7 inches long to get started. Once you have that cut, go ahead and add your zipper pull if you haven't already. You could also use a pre-made zipper. I like to buy them off of Zip It. They make great number 3 zippers that are plastic, easy to sew over, and you can just cut it down to the size you need it. Now grab your pattern piece K, which is your zipper tab, and on the back, what I do is I just finger press this. You could iron it if you want, but there's a good chance you're gonna burn your little fingers if you try to do that. So I just finger press it. So the short sides are coming together to meet one another, and I'm just pressing it to get that midpoint mark. This is wrong sides together. Open it back up, and then I take those short edges and I fold them up to meet that midpoint line. I know it's a very small piece of material. Just do your best. Fold it, fold it, fold it. Fold both sides to meet that midpoint line. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to be somewhat there. And then fold the whole thing in half so you have like a little hot dog bun. And then it's easier if you just grab some clips. Clip on the side with a single fold, not the double folds. Here you go. And then all you have to do is slide this over the closed end of your zipper. So you might notice when you close your zipper, it goes to the left and it closes behind. When you open your zipper, pull to the right, it opens on this side. We're worried about the side that closes. So we want the closed edge to apply our zipper tab. So all I have to do is kind of open it up, slide my zipper tape in there, hug the material around the zipper tape. Just make sure the zipper tape goes all the way to the single fold, and then clip in place like that. So I'm going to set that to the side because since I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and prep my D-ring strap as well. So grab your pattern piece J, same kind of thing. You're just going to fold it in half, wrong sides together. Doesn't really matter which edges because it is a square. And then just gently finger press it. Try not to stretch it too much, so just finger press it. Open it up. Fold those raw edges up to meet that middle pressed line. There you go, and just give it another finger press. Do this for both edges. So it's kind of like a little pamphlet, you know, they both kind of come in together. And then once again, fold the whole thing in half. You have a nice little hot dog bun. Grab some clips to hold it together. There we go. So, especially for the little D-ring tab here, you might want to downgrade your needle to a 70-10 or just be very careful. I suggest we sew the zipper first. So what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch right along the inner folded edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Keep an eye to make sure that it lines up on the bottom because you need to make sure you catch the bottom and the top of the zipper tab. So if your zipper tab right here is kind of like woo all the way up towards the edge of the zipper tape, try to fold it back down so you can look at it from the side and that they're matching up. Flip it over, matching up. There we go. If you need to use double-sided tape here to hold it in place first, go ahead and do that. And then after I sew this on, I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to trim the thread afterwards. And then I'm going to feed this D-ring tab afterwards. So on the zipper, we're just going to top stitch on the inner edge. But on the D-ring tab, we're going to top stitch along both long edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. By doing the zipper first and not trimming the thread and then pushing the D-ring tab underneath, it's going to help prevent my machine from eating this thinner material, which trust me, my machine is a chompy girl. She likes to eat thin material. Okay, once you have that on there, you can trim down the edges of your zipper tab if they're a little bit wider than your zipper tape. There we go. I love how a zipper tab looks. It's just so cute. Then grab your D-ring and then just fold your D-ring tab around the straight edge of your D-ring, add a clip, and hold it together just like that. You can set your D-ring to the side for now. So I just realized that I was planning on using this number 5 zipper tape for this zipper here because this zipper is the one that goes on the top, not the one that goes with the clear pocket, but I got a little turned around. That's okay. I've got plenty of number 3 zipper tape, and the pattern actually suggests that you use number 3 zipper on both of the zippers. So I'm going to set aside the number 5 zipper tape. I'm not going to use it today. I have another number 3 zipper pull. We'll just do 2 number 3 zippers today. So go ahead and set the top zipper with the tab to the side. And if you haven't already, go ahead and cut your other zipper. This is going to be for the zipper on the clear pocket. Cut that down to at least 8 inches. And then add your zipper pull. And there we go. Just put that on there. And now this is where I'm switching it up just a little bit. In the pattern, you're going to apply your clear pocket to the zipper like we do traditionally with fabric, where you pretty much put it right side down on the zipper, then fold it back and top stitch it. The thing with that is that what happens is you end up with kind of wonky stitches because you're going to have the stitches, it's a clear vinyl, so you're going to see the stitches when you first sewed it on, and then you're going to flip the vinyl back and you're going to top stitch. And if you don't get it perfectly matched up, like I didn't get it perfectly matched up, they're pretty wonky over here, but then they match up over here, it looks a little crazy. So the thing about clear vinyl is that it doesn't fray, so you don't really need to fold it down and then fold it back and top stitch it. And it's also just a little bit harder to do that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take my clear vinyl, I'm going to take off the back, just kind of fold it back like that. And I'm actually going to do it. Clear vinyl doesn't have a right side and a wrong side, but if you do have clear vinyl that has a print on one side, so there is a right side and a wrong side, you want it right side up. And I'm just going to line it up on my zipper tape like this, making sure that it's, you know, a 1/8 of an inch. Let's measure it. Let me grab my handy dandy ruler. So yeah, it's about an 1/8 of an inch away from the zipper teeth. If you want, you can use tape to hold this in place and then remove the tape. I'll show you how to do that. I know, we're already off to a difficult start. I keep switching stuff around and confusing you. This is a wash away 1/4 inch double-sided tape. It's great stuff, it's easy to sew over, and it's easy to pull out of the seams when you're done with it, which is what we're gonna do. So I'm just gonna put it on the edge of my zipper tape. Now when my zipper closes, it's going up, okay? So my zipper, when closed, is going towards the top. I'm putting this tape on the left side because that's where my pocket's gonna go. It's gonna go on the left side. So I'm just gonna trim down the tape. Now, I'm gonna remove the paper from it. And then I'm gonna take my clear vinyl, and your zipper is longer than it needs to be. That's a good thing. And I'm just going to stick down my clear vinyl. So once again, you know, just using my eyeballs, seeing that it's about an 1/8 of an inch away from the zipper teeth. All right, there we go. Is it perfect? Probably not, but that's okay. And so what I'm gonna do is just kind of fold up the paper underneath. I don't need to sew over the paper. I just need to make sure the paper stays there because I don't want the clear vinyl sticking to my bed of my sewing machine as I'm trying to top stitch this. So now what I'm gonna do is just top stitch this in place, and pretty much I'm just gonna go right down the center between the edge of my clear vinyl and the edge of my zipper tape. I'm just gonna go right along the center. That's gonna be about an 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of your clear vinyl. If your presser foot is sticking to your vinyl, you're gonna wanna grab a piece of Scotch tape, just that clear, regular, like gift wrap tape, and stick it to the bottom of your presser foot, cut out a little hole where the needle is, and that will prevent the presser foot from sticking to this. All right, there we go. So now we have this top stitch in place with only 1 row of stitching. Yes, this bottom edge will end up being a little too long. I found it was too long even without doing this, so we can trim that down. I'm not worried about that. So now we're gonna grab pattern piece A. We're gonna lay pattern piece A right side up, and we're going to lay our zipper right side up over it. And this time we're gonna match up the right edge of our zipper tape with that right edge of our exterior piece. You can go ahead and remove that paper so it's easier to see all this. The biggest thing here is make sure the sides of your clear vinyl and your pattern piece A are matching up. So right now, my pattern piece A is overextending on the right, so I'm going to scooch it over. And I'm just gonna line it up. So I'm lining up the raw edge of the zipper tape that doesn't have any stitching on it with the raw edge of my exterior material. And I don't know if you can see, but my clear vinyl overextends quite a bit. That's okay, I'll trim it down. All right, so you can see I also add some clips on the top and the bottom to just kind of hold it straight. I don't want anything twisting around when I'm not looking. So now we're gonna baste along this right clipped edge at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you have that done, you can trim the bottom edge. So remember, direction of the print is right side up like this. It's vertical. The zipper pull when fully closed is up here on the top. So this is the bottom over here. We can trim that zipper tape down. Leave the other one extended though, just in case. There we go. Forgot to tell you too, you can remove that double-sided tape. So if you lift this up, or you can leave it, it's up to you. But if it's noticeable and you don't like it, you just pull it out. Just like that. And even if it's in the seams, it'll kind of rip out of there. It should be pretty easy without doing any damage. You know what, I can already see my zipper tape starting to fray a bit over here, so just to prevent it from getting out of control, I'm going to actually burn the edge of my zipper tape. There we go. What you're doing is you're just melting. It's plastic. It's a nylon zipper tape, so it's plastic material. You're just melting it and sealing in the edges so you don't have to worry about it fraying and becoming a mess later. So here we have piece A and our vinyl piece already attached to the zipper. Now we're going to grab piece B, and if it has a direction, make sure the direction lines up with the direction over here on the A panel. And we're going to take our piece B and we're going to lay it right side down over on the right side of our zipper tape where we just basted panel A, and just line it up with the panel A material. It should be the same height. And now we're going to sew this down at a 3/16 of an inch, which is just under 1/4 of an inch. So once you have that stitched in place, let's go ahead and trim down this bottom corner seam allowance just a little bit. So you're going to just trim the corner at an angle, right? Little 45-degree angle. You're not cutting any of the stitches, none of the thread, just the material. It helps to reduce the bulk when we're stitching it all together later. Then what you're going to want to do is gently push that B panel back, right side up, and try to get it as smooth and straight as possible right next to your zipper. Should work out pretty well. You could iron this, but you really want to make sure you don't let your iron touch this clear vinyl because it'll melt it, it'll be a mess, and you'll have to start over. So finger pressing this is great. And now what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch along this edge of the zipper, but the pattern actually gives a great suggestion saying start your top stitching over here on this top right corner of the B panel, go down the short edge, then down the zipper, and then end down here on the bottom right corner. What that helps with is that, I don't know if you've ever made something and you've noticed after the top stitching is done, a couple of the stitches kind of unravel on the very ends, and then you have like these little spikes. They look like little stray hairs of thread in your finished project. It's kind of a pain. You can always get a lighter and melt it down, but then you risk burning your material. So with top stitching, if you can just top stitch somewhere else that's not going to be too close to that edge, then you don't have to worry about that. So we're gonna go do that. Look at how fun this is. So if you want, you can go ahead and trim down your clear vinyl if you'd like. Having that excess is not going to help us, so I'm just gonna look at the wrong side of my material, and very gently, I'm just taking my scissors and trimming down the clear vinyl as if I'm just tracing the edge of my fabric. If it's easier, put some clips over here on the top and the bottom sides to make sure nothing moves around. So as you can see, I still have my zipper overhanging a bit on the top. I'm okay with that. If you'd like, you can go ahead and close this up a little bit by just stitching about 1/8 of an inch in from the edges of your material and then just over the zipper teeth and then trim it down. You can go ahead and do that now if you'd like. I can wait a minute. So now we're going to install the top zipper using the Butler method. I have had so many guys tell me about this. The pattern uses this. I have not done the Butler method before this project. I used it when I tested out this pattern. It's so cool. So I'm going to have a link up here, and I'm also going to have a link down in the description for Amy Lynn Design YouTube channel where she walks you through the Butler method in detail. It's the best. So if you really want an in-depth look at how this method works, go check out that YouTube channel down below. So we're going to take the panel with the clear pocket and the zipper already installed and lay it right side up. And over here on the skinny side where that B panel is, we're going to measure 5/8 of an inch up from the bottom edge here and mark it with a chalk pen on the right side of the material. And then you're going to take your zipper that has the tab on the end and with the tab on the bottom. So both of these zippers when closed should be going up. Okay, they should be going in the same direction. With the tab on the bottom, we're going to flip the zipper right side down and line up this bottom edge of the tab with that 5/8 of an inch chalk mark, okay? So the zipper doesn't come all the way down to the edge of the fabric. This is very important. So I'm lining up the bottom edge of the zipper tab with that mark. I'm lining up the edge of my zipper tape with the raw edge of my material, and then I'm going to clip them together on this right side over here. If you need to, move your zipper out of the way. All right, what you actually want to do is open your zipper like that. So make sure the top zipper is opened just like that. You might have to pull your zipper pulled down a little bit. That's fine. So once you have these together, you're going to grab a pocket lining piece E and you're going to lay that right side down on the back of your zipper, and the edge of this is going to line up with the edge of the piece B strip over here, and it's not going to line up like this with the bottom of the zipper tab. It's going to line up perfectly top and bottom with that back piece of material. So I like to hold it from the top like this so I can see where the edge of my fabric is and just make sure I match up my corner with that. It's a little tricky here because we did not baste the zipper down. You don't want to baste the zipper down. It needs to be unbasted, so you just have to be careful here. Use lots of clips. You just need to clip these 3 layers together. You have the exterior on the very bottom, the zipper, and then the lining on the top. So let's just review real quick. Our lining material is wrong side up, right side down. Our zipper is right side down, so we're looking at the back side of it. And our exterior material with the clear pocket is right side up, just like that. So now I'm gonna flip this over, so it's gonna look how we're gonna stitch it. At the machine, I'm gonna flip it with the exterior material that has the vinyl pocket, wrong side up. And I'm going to start from the very top, and I'm going to stitch down at a 3/16 inch seam allowance. Now, before we get over there, we're going to look at the bottom raw edge of this B panel, and you're going to want to measure 5/8 of an inch up and make a mark. All right. So here's my line, 5/8 of an inch from the bottom edge here. And as we sew, we're going to sew down at a 3/16 inch seam allowance, and when our needle gets to this mark, we're going to stop. We're going to keep the needle down, but what we're going to do is take our stiletto and we're going to just pull the zipper tape to the side 90 degrees, just like that. So it's going to be stitched down here, and we're going to pull this nice and tight, 90 degrees to the side, and then we're going to continue stitching. And then we're going to go back up and over this edge one more time, just the zipper teeth area. Again, watch the video that I'm going to link down below, okay? I think it's going to explain this much better than I am. The pattern also does a great job of explaining this method. All right, what do you think? I'll be honest, I've been avoiding trying that for a while because I thought it was going to be a lot of work, and it's not. Obviously, it's not a lot of work. It's a super popular method because it's not a lot of work. So now, this is the row we just stitched over here. Over on this top corner, I'm going to trim that down at a 45-degree angle. I'm going to trim down the excess zipper tape. And I'm also going to trim down a tiny bit over here at the 45-degree angle, just like that. There we go. So now what we want to do is we want to flip all this so that you can pull up that zipper. You want the seam back here that you just sewed to go behind this B panel right here, that little skinny strip. We want it to go behind that, and the lining is going to continue going towards the right. The lining is not going back as well. And what we're going to do is we're just going to top stitch along this folded edge close to the zipper we just attached. But just like before, we want to be a little creative with our top stitching, so we're going to kind of have kill two birds with one stone here kind of thing. I'm going to start the top stitching over here on the bottom. I'm going to start it below my zipper, that's for the clear pocket. So I'm going to go over the zipper teeth, so that's going to help prevent my zipper from flying off at any point. So I'm going to stitch over the zipper teeth that we attached for the clear pocket until I get up to the seam that we were just working on. And then I'm going to stitch at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance right along that seam by our new zipper until I get to the edge. And then I'm going to pivot, and then making sure my zipper pull is over on the right towards the clear material, I'm going to stitch down over the other side, the open side of my zipper tape for the zipper on the clear pocket until I get just past it, and then I'll stop there. So that way I'm sealing my zipper for the clear pocket, and I'm also top stitching along the newly added top pocket. Okay, I'm actually going to leave this zipper. I know it's overhanging still, we don't need it there, but just to avoid confusion, because I don't want you to clip this zipper at all, I'm just going to leave it for now, okay? So this is where we're at. So you can go ahead and just tuck this lining back so it's not in our way while we move on. And now we're going to take pattern piece C, which is an exterior cut of fabric, and we're going to lay that right side down along the right edge of the zipper tape. Now if you'd like, once again, you can measure up 5/8 of an inch on the bottom edge, so look at your direction of your print, on the bottom edge here on the left side, measure up 5/8 of an inch and mark a line. And then you can take your zipper with the tab and flip that right side down and just line it up with that marked line. And that might be easier for you. And you just want to make sure that it lines up with the edges of the materials that you've already sewn. There we go. Now I'm just going to clip these together. All right, so I have my pattern piece C clipped to my zipper. Now I'm going to take my remaining pattern piece E and I'm going to lay that right side down. So now my two pattern piece E's, my lining pieces, they're right sides together. And the straight edge is going to clip along the edge we already have clipped over here, lining it up with that pattern piece C that's behind the zipper. And again, since we didn't base this zipper in place, just be very careful to make sure nothing gets pushed out of the way. We need to make sure that all 3 edges of pattern pieces C and E and the zipper tape all are right along the same spot. There we go. So now we're going to flip this over. And I'm going to turn to the bottom edge here where the zipper tape is still overhanging, and I want to mark a line. I'm going to mark 5/8 of an inch up from this bottom edge. This is the back piece of pattern piece C. There we go. I have a little pink mark there. Actually, for this one, I want to mark that 5/8 of an inch up on the back panel of pattern piece E, which is the lining panel that we haven't sewn on yet. Because when I sew this, due to my zipper foot, I'm going to be sewing on the back of this one, so that way my zipper foot can get nice and close to the zipper tape. All right, so reclip everything, make sure nothing got moved around, everything is good. Okay, so now for me, with the back of pattern piece E, wrong side up, I'm going to stitch down, starting at the top, at a 3/16 seam allowance, which is just a little under a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to go all the way down until I get to that mark, that 5/8 of an inch mark. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to leave my needle down in place, and then I'm going to pull the zipper tape 90 degrees just like that, so perpendicular to that line. If it's all frumpy or anything, don't worry about how it folds. You just need to pull it over, okay? And then you're going to continue stitching all the way to the edge, pull the needle back up so that it's just to the right of those previous stitches, and go over again. What you're doing is just doing 2 stitch lines over this little bulky zipper piece here so that it doesn't come out at any point. Alright, let's look how this is. So now I'm gonna close the zipper, it makes it easier. And what we want to do, let's first clip a little bit. So we're going to clip down that zipper tape that's just sticking out like that. And we're going to clip the corners of the seam we just sewed at a 45-degree angle, making sure we're not cutting any of the thread we just sewed with. And now we're going to keep the seam behind the exterior material. So we're just going to flatten this out just like that. So you can see if I flip this up, the lining material that we just sewed on, it's over here on the left. So if I were to just flip this exterior piece back, there's nothing here. That's exactly what we want. So now we're going to top stitch along this big piece here close to the zipper at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. It is suggested that you start just like 3/4 of an inch over here on the side, go up, down the edge, and then end over here as well, just to prevent any little bits of threads poking out in the end. So now that we have that all sewn in there, let's go ahead and trim down this zipper tape as well. There we go. So what you can do is you can kind of fold this and you have a pretty good idea of how it's coming along. Honestly, if you wanted to just add your D-ring to this and then do the final steps to sew it together, you can. If you didn't want to add the tissue pocket and the snaps, you could totally skip all that. You could just not do the tissue pocket, don't do the snap. Just take your 2 exterior pieces with the clear vinyl, lay them right sides together, lay the lining right sides together, and just stitch this together with the final stitching instructions, and you could be done. I mean, if you want it to be really simple. But we're going to do the tissue pocket because it's cool. So go ahead and set this unit to the side. Okay, so grab your pieces F and G, and this is a tissue pocket. This is what it looks like. You see, you kind of open it up, you can put tissues in here, easy to get out, and it also creates a slip pocket, which is a snap pocket, just like that. So there's a lot of pockets that we're creating with this material here. The thing about this is that there's not the best place to put a tag. So the tag, you could definitely put the tag on the material that's inside here. You can still add that now if you're working on your panel. You can add your tag in there. You could add the tag on one of the flaps. I think I might do that. I think I'll probably end up adding the tag on one of the flaps just like this. It will just be not, it won't be like that because my tag is too wide. I'll have to add it like that. So I'm going to keep this out so I don't forget to do that. All right, so grab your pattern pieces F and figure out which side you want to be the left, which side you want to be the right, and lay it out appropriately. And grab your lining piece G and lay it right side down on top of pattern piece F. And so over here on the left, this is my left flap, my left unit. So I know I'm going to sew along the right edge. Okay, so I'm going to clip them on the long edges along the right edge because that's where I'm going to sew. And then this is going to be my right flap. So I'm going to take my pattern piece G and lay that right side down on top of the exterior piece. There we go. And I'm going to clip on the left edge of this one. Okay, so now the pattern says we sew along these edges at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is a very small seam allowance. But 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, sew these down. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Once these are sewn, you're going to flip them wrong sides together. It's a little hard to really get this seam exactly the way you want it since it is such a skinny seam. You might want to grab your iron and iron this, but I find I can finger press it pretty well. So take your time here. Again, if you need to, grab an iron, press this with an iron to get it as flat as possible. I like to line up all the raw edges. So I'm more focused on lining up these raw edges and these corners than I am on the seam right now. Just because you can flatten out that seam and you think it's perfect, and then you look over here and it's all wonky, and then you sew it anyways. It's a mess. So I always line up the raw edges first, get those the way I want them, and then press along this. And if I really want to make sure the seam stays where it is, I'll also add clips along the seam that I'm going to be top stitching on to hold it perfectly. So I'm going to do the same thing with the other flap. Okay, so these inner edges are my folded seams, my nice folded crisp seams. The outer edges are raw. What we're going to do is we're going to top stitch along the top short edge, the folded seam, and the bottom short edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Do this for both of them. You're going to do the short edges and the seam that you sewed already. Okay, here we go. And I had my bag tag out the whole time and I still forgot to add it. So in the end, these are going to overlap just like this. And this will be sewn into a pocket. So I'm going to have my bag tag. Oh, it's a hard place to figure it out. I think I'll actually put my bag tag on this flap on the bottom. So it's the right side flap, the side with the top stitching on the left. I'm actually going to attach my bag tag there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half just so I can find the midpoint on this top stitched area, and I'm going to use a pin and just pin where that midpoint is. There we go. And that's just going to help me visualize this. I'm going to grab some of my double-sided tape to help me. I'm going to add the tape to the back of my tag, and I'm going to apply my tag just below the top stitching line, or maybe a little bit lower. We'll see. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. There we go. This is going to be a little tricky because I top stitched the short edges, which I could always just unpick them, but I think I can move this out of my way enough. You see how I'm pulling the lining out of the way? I could top stitch through the lining and the exterior, and honestly no one's gonna notice. It will be fine. But what I should have done was actually stitch this on before I top stitched the sides down. But that's okay. I can just pull the lining a little bit out of the way, flatten this out, and I'm gonna go top stitch my tag on at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. So now we're going to play with pattern piece H. So grab one of your pattern piece H's and lay it right side up. And then take your left panel, so the top stitching will be on the right, the left edges will be raw, and lay that on top of your lining that's right side up, and line it up on the left edge here. It should be the same size. Go ahead and clip these together. So now grab your remaining panel H and lay that lining one right side down. So the flap is sandwiched in between them. Add it to the clips that you already have here. And now we're going to sew along this clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is pretty small for so many layers. So make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end and go slow. Once you have that stitched, you're going to press the lining panels so that they're wrong sides together. I like to do this first. This gets a little wonky, okay? So I'm going to walk you through it. Don't let any of this stress you out, okay? Just remember that if things don't line up perfectly, which they probably won't, it's going to be fine. In the end, it's going to look great. So as you can see, I'm trying to flatten out these lining pieces really well so that I can flatten out the seam really well. If you want to iron the seam, go ahead and do that. Then what you want to do is you want to fold this flap down like this so that the exterior is showing. You see the lining side of the flap is here, the exterior of the flap is here. You want to fold it down just like that because this is how it's going to be in the end. And this is going to be the top of your slip pocket or your pocket with the cam snap. Press, not press, cam snap. So you can see I'm just clipping as much together as I can. But by doing this, what you're going to probably end up doing is one of your lining panels is going to end up just a little bit longer than the other. That's fine. Again, don't let it stress you out. There we go, looking good. So I'm also going to add some clips along the seam just to hold it as flat as I can get it. And now we're going to top stitch along this edge over here, this folded bulky edge. We're going to top stitch that at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Let's start at the top over here though, about 3/8 of an inch along this raw short edge, and then go down and then top stitch and then end by going down a little bit over here too, just kind of like pinching the top bits together. You're top stitching through all the material, so both linings and your flap. Now it's time to add the snap. So get to pick your color, the most fun part. I'm gonna do red. So you're going to need a female and a male end for your snap. The photo in the pattern is great actually. You have the female end is called the socket and then the male end is called the stud. So you have the socket and the stud and then 2 caps. Again, if you have super fun caps like hearts and stars and things like that, it's not gonna do you any good here because you don't see it. So I'm just gonna use the flat ones. I actually don't use a hole punch when I install snaps. I only use a stiletto because I don't want the hole to be too big. So first thing you wanna do is grab your unit that has the clear pocket already installed, and we're focused on the edge over here, the exterior edge, no lining, leave the lining out of it, only the exterior material, this big piece right here. All right, so what you want to do is you want to find the midpoint along this edge over here closest to the zipper and then measure 7/8 of an inch down from that midpoint mark. So I have it right here. And then I'm going to take my stiletto and I'm just going to poke a hole right where that dot is, going all the way through. There we go. And then I'm going to grab a scrap piece of Decoville Light, because that's just what I happen to have on hand. I'm going to cut 2 of these out. And I'm just going to poke a hole through the center of that. There we go. So what we want to do is we want to take our cap. We're going to have it go through the Decoville Light or whatever scrap stuff you're using. And then on the back side of our material, we're going to have it go through the back and poke out through the front. And I'm going to use the stud here, which is the male end, and I'm just going to push that over it. It does not snap in place, but you can kind of get it to hold it there. And then I'm going to carefully hold it together. I'm going to grab my little press here. The cap end goes on the bottom die, so I'm just going to slide it in there so it's nice and snug in that bottom die, and then press together. You can press on the table or just press with your hands. There we go, and it should be nice and firm in there. Now we're gonna work on the lining side of the flap where you've already sewn it all together. And once again, you're gonna find the midpoint mark, and this time you're gonna measure 5/8 of an inch down from the midpoint mark of this top folded edge here. All right, and I know I already installed this, so it's a little late, but I like to kind of, before you install the snap, what you're supposed to do, just mark your dots and then line up your dots to make sure it ends up the way you want. Now I got lucky. I'm good. It's not hard to get this to line up properly since everything measures out really nicely. So this is where that's going to go. So now, only on the lining panel, not through all the panels, just the one lining panel, I'm going to use my stiletto to poke a hole. There we go. On the other piece of Decoville Light, I'm going to poke a hole through the center. So then on the back of the Decoville Light or the front, it doesn't matter. I'm going to install my cap. And then on the back side of the lining, I'm going to poke my cap through that hole that I marked. There we go. And then I'm going to take the socket and apply that over it. And now, again, cap side down. I don't have to change my top die. Doesn't matter if it's the socket or the stud. It's going to go up against the top die, push down nice and firm. There we go. So now, let's try it out. I'm going to snap them together. And when I do that, it's all lined up pretty well. Yeah, I think that looks great. Perfect. So this is how it'll be in the end, and this will be a nice little snap pocket. Lovely. Okay, so now that we have the snaps in place, let's go ahead and finish up this pouch. So now what we're going to do is mark 5/8 of an inch in from this right fold here. So this little folded over seam, we're going to go 5/8 of an inch in from there. I'm going to use a chalk marker for this. And then take your right flap and the edge that's already top stitched, you're going to line that up with that 5/8 of an inch mark. There we go. And now clip everything together, lining, exterior, both flaps, clip them all together so they're just like this. And now we're going to baste along the top and the bottom short edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So once you have the flaps basted on, you're going to take your little tissue pocket flap here and snap it together with that back panel. Make sure all the lining is going towards the left, and then line up the flap and the back panel so that it's not crooked. You need it to straighten up with the sides and make sure it's straight along the top stitching. and then just use some clips to hold it all together. So now when we flip it over, you can see that the flaps overhang just a little bit. If it overhangs even more than that, that's fine. So now we're gonna baste this at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Just follow the back curved edge all the way around. Once you have that basted on, go ahead and trim down the sides. So I'm gonna be honest, my right side flap doesn't come all the way to the edge like I need it to, so I'm actually going to get the seam ripper out and I'm gonna move this right panel just down a little bit. And the reason I'm doing this instead of just trimming down this bottom edge is because this section really needs to match up with the other section, so I don't want this whole unit to be too short. Also, it's just a little bit easier to move this down. We'll still have plenty of overlap here to hold in the tissues. And since I've only basted it in place, it's not that much extra work to unbaste it. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna line up the raw edges with the bottom edge over here. Make sure the sides are lined up. There we go. I'm not worried about the curves. I just wanna make sure the sides over here on the top and the bottom, and then the bottom edge or the side edge over here on the right. It's hard to tell what's bottom, what's top, but now I'm just gonna clip it back together. So that's the nice thing, you know, you don't, if you see a problem, you don't have to just let it go and then be unhappy with it in the end. Because the big thing here is that when I do sew these outer panels together, I'm gonna be sewing them at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, not a 1/2 of an inch, not a 3/8 of an inch. If I was sewing it at a 1/2 an inch seam allowance, then I wouldn't have minded that. But a 1/4 inch, we're gonna get very close to those raw edges, and the last thing I want is to do all this work and just have raw edges showing in the end. You know what I mean? So now I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna rebaste this down at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, once again from the back so I can see where the curves are. Okay, that looks much better. So just like before though, I do wanna trim down these corners because I want this to be the right shape. It'll make it easier to attach it later. Okay, it was a mistake, but it was a small one, so we are good to go. Still have a great little tissue pocket here. All right, next, let's attach our D-ring. So the pattern suggests you attach the D-ring right at the fold where the right flap overextends. I'm actually going to attach it just to the left of it. That gets really bulky with both flaps and the exterior and the D-ring. So I'm going to attach my D-ring just to the left of that flap so that it kind of just tucks in next to it. And then you want the raw edges of the D-ring to extend past the raw edge of the panel by about 3/8 of an inch. Just a bit. Just have it extend a bit. You don't have to measure it. Just have it extend over a little bit. Now let's go baste that down at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Make sure you double check that your D-ring is being attached on the same side as the zipper pulls when the zipper pulls are closed, because it's going to hang like this. You don't want it hanging upside down. So we are just about done. Now we're going to take the exterior, and you can see I never basted down my clear vinyl. You could, if you really wanted to, you could go baste this all down. I find it's pretty sturdy, I don't really need to, but we want to take the exterior and the clear vinyl, and then the exterior back with the flap, and make sure that D-ring is going down. Open your zippers so that both of them are in the middle, so that way you don't have to worry about the zipper pulls, and fold the exteriors right side together, and match up all the edges. They should match up pretty perfectly. So I'm going to get those corners first, and then I'm going to go up to the seams, and just line those up and clip together. There we go. Do both sides, clip right sides together. They shouldn't be too bulky. That Butler method is pretty stinking handy. All right, I'm gonna clip together the lining as well. Both the lining panels are right sides together, wrong sides out. Match up those corners, and then just clip the whole unit together. So you have the lining on one side and the exterior on the other. Now, on the lining bottom edge, this flat edge here on the lining, go ahead and mark yourself a 4-inch opening. So that little bit there is how we're gonna turn everything out. Now here's what we wanna do. First, definitely use a zipper foot. Zipper foot's gonna be your friend when you're sewing things like this together. We're gonna start at this mark over here, and we're going to backstitch well at the mark, and then we're gonna go around the side, sewing the lining at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once we get close to the seam where it connects with the exterior, we're gonna decrease our seam allowance to a 1/4 of an inch, carefully sew at a 1/4 of an inch right here. So by using the zipper foot, you're allowing your needle to get nice and close to the zipper tab without getting on top of the zipper tab. You don't wanna sew the tab, you just wanna sew close to it. So 1/4 of an inch over here, 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Also be careful when you go by the D-ring, make sure you can feel the D-ring is flat and pointed away, it's not folded over here. You don't wanna hit the D-ring with your needle. So 1/4 inch here. This is where a zipper foot's gonna be handy. Go around the edges at 1/4 inch, staying at 1/4 inch on the exterior until you get past the other seam. And once you get back onto the lining, go ahead and increase your seam allowance to 3/8 of an inch all the way until you get to the end mark right here and backstitch really well and leave the spot open. If you're using a vinyl or you just have a lot of really thick material, you might want to go over the exterior portion a second time. I'm probably going to do that just because of the clear vinyl. So I accidentally stopped recording and didn't show you the second round of stitching on the exterior, but the nice thing about doing a second round is that you go just outside, so closer to the raw edge, just outside of those original stitches. And if maybe whenever you were stitching the curve right here, you got a little all over the place and your curve isn't so much a curve, more of like a jaggedy, wonky route, you can smooth it out with the second row stitching. So instead of going next to it, just go over it and smooth out the curve. It's gonna be a lot easier. So now I'm going to trim the seam allowance down on the lining. So just going on the lining edge here, I'm just trimming the seam allowance down in half until I get to that opening, and then I veer off. I'm not trimming the seam allowance at the opening because that will make it easier to close in just a moment. There we go. And then for the exterior, I'm just going to cut little slits right along the edge, just going into the seam, about halfway through the seam, only on the curves. And then over here on the seams where they connect, you can trim that down a bit to reduce bulk. There we go. I leave a little bit over here of the D-ring tab sticking out. All right, I'm trying to see how thick these corners are. I think we should be okay. Let's see. So now, reach in, and your zipper should be at least halfway open. Go ahead and push it the rest of the way open, and gently turn your whole unit right side out. Now with vinyl, especially the clear vinyl, if you're struggling, go grab a hairdryer or a heat gun, whichever you have. Turn it on, get it hot, and blast this with heat. So if it looks like this, it looks like a mess, just blast it with your hairdryer, and then right away, grab it and push it out. And it's gonna make the clear vinyl very easy to work with. Much, much easier than it is without the heat. And by doing that, it's also gonna make sure you don't accidentally rip anything while you're pushing this out. All right, these bottom corners are definitely tricky. Use that heat. It's gonna make it a lot easier. I'm regretting not having my hairdryer out right now. But I'm using my turning tool to try to get in there. I'm being very careful. I'm using the blunt end because I am pushing pretty hard. I don't want to accidentally rip a hole in the seam. It's looking good. All right, so that's looking okay. Now I'm going to go over here where the zipper tab is, and I'm just going to reach in and pop it out like that. Okay, I'm just going to tuck in the lining because I want to see what it looks like. Oh my goodness, look how cute this little stinker is. So here's the front with the clear pocket, here's the back with the tissue pocket, and the little cam snap pocket. Oh, this is perfect for traveling. And then here's your tissue pocket. You can easily get in and out of that. All right, all we have to do is close up the lining and we are done. So let's pull the lining out all the way. I do suggest you go ahead and put your fingers in and push out the corners on the bottom. It'll make it easier. There you go. And all you have to do is put your fingers into the edges of that opening, give it a little tug, and the raw edges will naturally fold down on themselves. Just help them out. Go, and then grab some clips and clip along this edge to hold it shut. Get it as straight as you can, but remember it's the lining, it's not going to be noticeable. And now let's sew along this clipped edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alrighty, let's tuck in that lining and flatten it out as best you can. You might want to grab an iron here and give it a good press, not on the clear vinyl, but give it a good press on the back. Just tuck in those corners. Sometimes you might want to reach in the clear pocket and help poke out those corners down there just a little bit. Push out the seam. There we go. Oh yeah, this is cute. So cute. And there you go. And now you can add a wristlet strap. You can add a lanyard. Actually, what we've been using, we made a bunch of beaded mask chains. I'll show you in just a moment. But we've been making beaded mask chains. And since we're not wearing our masks everywhere all the time now, we've been using those beaded mask chains as lanyards. And we just clip on something like this. How cute is that? So fun. I tell you what, I will never make enough of these. I will never make enough of these. These are so stinking cute. And can we just look at this fabric? Look at that stinking fabric. Look at that. It's the map. I mean, isn't that so cool? This fabric comes from Katie over at My Little Shindig. I'll have information down for it below. It might be available for pre-order now. It might be available for pre-order soon. You're going to want to get some. And if you like the fabric, wait till you see the vinyl. Oh my gosh, it's so good. So this turned out amazing, as expected. I mean, it's amazing. I absolutely love it. I think the placement for our bag tag on the back here turned out great. Oh, and I should tell you, this is a mask chain. So remember I told you about the mask chains that we have in the house. This is a mask chain that we made. It's beaded. It's elastic. If you were going to make a chain like this to be used as a lanyard, I would not suggest making it elastic. I would suggest using something that doesn't stretch, but this is what we have. And you can see it works great. This is a very, very cute little thing for anybody, grown-up, kid, anyone at all to be wearing wherever they need to go. I don't know, maybe you're at a concert, maybe you're at a theme park. I don't know what you do, but this is gonna be great for everything. So I'm sure some of you guys are gonna ask about material. Specifically, I am using the cotton woven or quilt weight cotton on the exterior for both of these little pouches. I do suggest that. I think if you used vinyl, it's gonna get very, very bulky. You have a lot going on here. So if I were to use vinyl, I would probably leave off the tissue pocket and this back slip and the cam snap. I wouldn't do the snap, this back piece here, I would just have the back panel if I were to use vinyl. But I think you should do all of it. I think you should do all of it. It's so great. So I hope you love making these as much as I do. Thank you so much to Sewfisticated Craft for allowing me to use your patterns in my channel. We're gonna have so many more. So excited. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye guys.